Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody doing? The Pittsburgh Steelers 2024 draft is in the books. And we're here to talk about it at least a little bit. I try to do one of these live streams after the Steelers draft. There's a lot of hype that goes into the Steelers draft, a lot of excitement that goes in the Steelers draft, a lot of guessing on the mock drafts to see if they get their guy. And sure enough, they drafted none of my guys. They drafted none of the people I wanted. No, no, no. The Pittsburgh Steelers draft is in the books, and they didn't draft any of the people that were on my mock drafts. Not one, and that's okay. Because they drafted some really, 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 really good people. It's just I didn't have Troy Fontenot in there because I was concerned by the medical, and the Pittsburgh Steelers were not. I didn't have Zach Frazier on there because I on any of my mocks. I didn't have Fontenot or Frazier on any of my mocks because I had seen a couple plays of what he did, took some pass snaps, and he ended up getting pushed back into the quarterback, and that concerned me. It gave me little Kendrick Green flashbacks. But he does have a solid tape overall. The first thing I saw was those two highlights, and I'm like, oh no, I can't have that, which was a mistake because he's probably going to be solid. So I didn't have Fontenot, I didn't have Frazier, I didn't have Roman Wilson on any of my mock draft because I honestly didn't think he was going to be there. I thought he was going to be an early second round guy. Since I expected them to take a tackle in the first, or maybe a center in the first, and something else in the second, I didn't expect him to actually be available to us when he was. And I definitely didn't have Peyton Wilson there because I knew he wouldn't be available to us, not knowing anything about the medical. Because he was projected as a fringe fringe one round two guy. And I found out that there's a lot of medical concerns, a shoulder. He doesn't have an ACL, which is, kind of terrifying in its own right. And then I found out that Greg Lloyd and Hines Ward didn't have an ACL either. And they had long, productive careers. So you have to say that, when you look at Peyton Wilson's tape, he's an absolute monster. And the fact that they got him at the end of the third is a steal of a deal. Granted, he stays healthy. The concern about Fontenot and the concern about Peyton Wilson is that the medical flags came out and said they were like one contract guys. That's a concern, but the Steelers didn't have that concern. Only I had that concern. So who am I? No, the Steelers are the end-all be-all in this regard. They are putting their future stake on the line for these guys, so I think they have to be somewhat confident with the medical. And in that sense, they feel Fontenot and they feel Wilson is somebody that can be healthy for the long haul, and hopefully they're right. But coming into the later rounds today, they had drafted the needs that I wanted them to draft. I think they addressed their biggest needs on the team, which were in the first round, they had a tackle, center, wide receiver, and inside linebacker. Tackle, center, and wide receiver were their three biggest pressing needs. That was something they had to address. And I do appreciate them putting in a call for Deebo Samuel, and I do appreciate them putting in a call for Courtland Sutton, and I do appreciate them attempting to make one of these trades work. But let's blame Denver for being stingy. Actually, let's blame Denver for not wanting to trade Courtland Sutton, and let's blame San Francisco for wanting too much for Deebo Samuel and Ayuk. That's why neither of them moved. I don't know exactly what they're going to do now because they have to pay Ayuk, and apparently contract talks have been ongoing, but I think they wanted to get rid of Deebo's contract so they could basically take Deebo's money and give it to Ayuk. Since they're not trading either of them, I don't know what they're going to do. So that is interesting, and that's very, very strange on their part. I don't know exactly what they're thinking in that regard, unless they honestly think that they can get them both for the stretch run. And if they can get them both if they think they have one more year to keep it all together, maybe they do. But then again, if you lose Ayuk or if you lose Deebo, or you end up doing something, you don't get to necessarily compensatory pick back. Or maybe you do, but you could have gotten better. Maybe they wanted too much. I don't know. But I do appreciate the Steelers for trying. I'm wondering if they're still in the wide receiver market. And they did shuffle a significant amount of money around to attempt to make a trade. They cleared up a nice amount of money. What are they going to do with that money? It's not just going to sit there. They're going to do something with it. Where are the needs in the post-draft world? Do they maybe need another wide receiver? Do they maybe need a nickel corner? Do they need, are they going to consider bringing in somebody like a Justin Simmons or a Tyler Boyd, or, there's a few names that have been ballyhooed around. You just wonder with the Steelers if they're still going to be able to do that, or if they want to do that at this point, given what they've added in the draft. Now, they did add a lot of heft up front, not just Fontenot, but in the in the round today, and I went to the Steelers draft party at Acrisure Stadium. An unseasonably warm day. I'm very, I just got home. I little bit sweaty, a little bit busy day. But no, they drafted today offensive lineman Mason McCormick, 6'5", 315-pound lineman, who had played guard. Now, what's funny is that I had heard if they had struck out center-wise, that they were going to take Mason McCormick and put him at guard. Hi, Derpy Entertainment. Thanks for dropping in. What are they doing now? I mean, I assume there's not going to be two centers in that regard. You're going to have just one center, which is, Zach Frazier. And then I honestly think the Mason McCormick one is just added insurance, I guess you could say, whether or not they continue to, if they're going to keep James Daniels in a contract year, and James Daniels has been really, really solid. Are they going to pay James Daniels top money, or are they going to try to groom Mason McCormick into the position? But yeah, 6'5", 315, big boy. Let's see. Jeremiah Yoder, hello there, longtime Steelers fan here. Since 1975, I wish I would have seen the glory years. I was born in 83, unfortunately. Loving the Steelers draft this year. Looking forward to seeing our Steelers compete here in 2024. Go Steelers. And Derpy Entertainment, this is a solid draft, man. 2 years in a row. The con artist does it again. Man, does he do it again. Guys, thanks for dropping in. I appreciate it. The top part of this draft is, and for some reason, this may sound insulting, but it's the word I use, is filth. Filth in a great way is filth in the best way possible. Like it's thievery of the highest order. Like Fontenot is, a monster. He's a little undersized for a tackle. But if you look at the tape is solid. I would have put him in one of my mock drafts, but I was mentioned as concerned about the medical. But if they're not concerned about the medical, neither am I. And the tape is that he's solid. The tape is that, hopefully he's a plug and play, because Roderick Jones wasn't a plug and play. You got to hope this guy starts day one, and you got to hope then Dan Moore's your swing tackle. And if that's the case, that's a win. Zach Frazier, same deal. Zach Frazier has to be your day one starting center. And the hope is that he is a likable guy. I actually saw him in person today. He's really, going to be a fan favorite, I think. Like everybody was kind of like, keep in mind, these are kids that fresh out of college, right? They had them like up against the Acrisure like barricades, where people everywhere, and they looked semi-terrified. Even though, like I said, Roman Wilson, Peyton Wilson, they're like, I don't know if they ever seen this level of fandom before, but Zach Frazier's like high-fiving everybody, and I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna be, people are gonna like this guy. And I have to have him start. And then Roman Wilson, man, he shouldn't have been there. He should not have been there when they took him. He should have been long gone. So you appreciate the value, and you have to wonder, is he right out of the gate the 2? Or are they going to bring in a veteran too? Personally, I think I would love if he would be so good that they just immediately become a 2, but I think honestly you might have to bring a veteran in for a year. A solid veteran 2, but man, Wilson I think has the goods, and I think he's going to be very, very good in his career. And then the other Wilson, so many Wilsons, so many Wilsons. Um, let's see. Roman's not a 2. So what do you put him at, the slot then? Derpy? Do you say he's a slot guy? I mean, I would, I like what I've seen from him. I would hope he'd be someone that would eventually work his way in, to that 2 spot. But I do think that a 2 is lacking. I do think that's something that they need to add probably here. Maybe Tyler Boyd's price has gone down. As mentioned, I don't know when you guys jumped in. The Steelers did place a call for Debo. They did place a call for Cortland Sutton. They got neither of them. I do appreciate them calling. I do think there is an interest to. I don't know if that would have even affected their plans unless it involved obviously draft picks this year. I don't know if that would have actually affected their board and how they perceived it, even if they grab one of those guys. It's just a matter of what exactly their plan. Their plan is for these receivers, because obviously Pickens is your one at this point. But I think if you're Russell Wilson, I think if you're Justin Fields, I think you want some more. I think you want more talent than that. Yes, Van Jefferson is not a bad signing. Quez Watkins is not a bad signing. My concern about those guys is that Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins are guys that are like maybe the potential to be a spot start. Like if somebody gets injured, they could be a spot start, maybe 2-3. I don't know if I'm relying on them to be the 2-3 to start the year. I would like a little bit more. I would like someone that would come in and be able to do a little bit more than what I feel they bring. I could be wrong on that front. Jefferson was pretty good. Do I think that King Kong will do any more before training camp starts? Yes. I really do. Apparently, there was a report that came out today that Cam Sutton was in the building recently for talks of a reunion. Obviously, you would prefer a situation where, he didn't get a domestic violence charge and be like 3 weeks on the lam. But at the same time, if he cleared that charge, it's the NFL, unfortunately. Some of these guys do some questionable things, terrible things. And, if it's something where it was a misunderstanding or more was blown out of proportion or something like that, maybe, he comes in on the cheap for a reunion. I wouldn't mind that. Granted, his legal troubles are behind him. But who's to say? Does that mean maybe Patrick Peterson's coming back? They did wait until one of the last rounds to address corner. I didn't really get into those besides Mason McCormick. The other picks were defensive tackle Logan Lee at 178 and corner Ryan Watts at 195. Now, Watts is 6'3". 6'3" is a big boy. Add him in with I always like to call him Cooper Rush. It's not Cooper Rush. Darius Rush and Corey Trice, and that's a giant corner room. Those are some big monsters they got in the cornerback wise, but they're all kind of late round borderline guys. You hope. DJ Chark is DJ Chark still out there? I wouldn't mind that ad too if he is. There are some names at key positions that are still out there in the wind that the Steelers could certainly consider signing. There was a flirt with Justin Simmons at previous point. Now, do I necessarily need any more safeties? Maybe not. But I wouldn't mind adding Simmons. I think it can only help. They run a lot of 3 safety sets. They had a lot of injuries at the position last year. I honestly think it wouldn't be a bad ad. The Steelers did clear up money for a reason. It was for a trade. Now they haven't made that trade. They're going to have to do something with it. It could bring back Allen Robinson. There's a lot of names that could potentially bring back. I think the big key positions are receiver and corner of names that they would potentially add. And I think, either one of those positions, I think it's an upgrade. I certainly think it will help. Definitely definitely one of those two could be a great addition. Whether it be bringing in, like I said, a Cam Sutton back into the fold, a Patrick Peterson back into the fold, and just adding a Justin Simmons would be on the back end would be, whew. I mean, you could have a really, really stout defense there. And I'm intrigued to see how everybody's going to fit, like who's actually going to start week one. Fontenot, I hope will. Zach Frazier, I hope will. The Wilsons, who knows? They may need time to potentially groom into their position. Now, if Peyton Wilson plays as good as he does on tape, I think you have to give him a start. I mean, I don't know, because now they got pretty deep room there with a Landon Roberts. If Cole Holcomb comes back with Patrick Queen and with him, I mean, that's a nice group. It's a nice group. It's just a matter of, then there's injury concerns. I thought, even guys they got off the street like Quan Alexander and even Miles Jack towards the end of the season did a really, really nice job. It's just now that the room's so stacked, you have to hope that the best two come out and deliver, whoever that may be. And then, with a depth position, like I said, Logan Lee here, a defensive tackle, they want to build within the trenches. They want to build O-line and D-line. They're shoring up their O-line. They're trying to shore up their D-line. The concern is that Cam's not getting any younger. And, you have to bring in somebody that was a DT, a DN that can replace him at some point. Speaking of monster corners, remember Hall of Fame Mel Blount? It's a 6'4". That's right. Yes. I mean, Mel changed the rules, didn't he? Because it was the 5-yard bump rule was a Mel Blount rule because he literally would 5 yards and knock you completely flat. If that's basically how Mel Blount worked. So that is the him. If there's always those dream scenarios, they're like, what former Steeler would you bring in, to this current group? And, there's a few, and Mel Blount's certainly one of them. I wouldn't have minded. I wouldn't mind Polamalu with this current group. It'll be interesting to see how they, how they address this corner position. I think their corners are good. I think Joey Porter got what it takes to eventually ascend to that star level. I do think that, Dante Jackson could be pretty good. Obviously you get that veteran presence. I think I'd want a little bit more. The last pick in this, their last pick of the draft, the 6th round, is that enough to sustain me corner-wise? Not necessarily. I think, but then again, if Darius Rush and Corey Trice step up, maybe they are good. Maybe they don't necessarily need anymore. I would personally want, someone to mature and groom them, or just somebody that's out there in the weeds that can produce, whether that's a Patrick Peterson, whether that's a Cam Sutton, whether that's someone unforeseen, I wouldn't mind it. So it's interesting to see how things are kind of go this season as far as their team and and then we haven't even addressed kind of the elephant in the room, even though it didn't affect the draft. This guy, number three, oh, Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's still under a 1-year deal. Justin Fields, his options due next week. Same with Najee. Are they going to pick up either one? Who knows? I assume they're picking up Najee's. I don't think they're picking up Fields, but that puts Wilson, that puts Fields, and that puts Kyle Allen 1-year deals. And going into next season, they have none of them on their roster as it stands currently. Are they going to sign one? Or are they going to sign both? Are they going to sign all three? I was wondering if they were going to take a late round quarterback. They actually did not. And I wonder, in that last pick in that draft, Joe Milton went 2 picks before the Steelers pick. And you wonder if maybe the Steelers would have flirted with such a thing just to have someone that was actually going to be in the room next year, guaranteed. But do they sign? Who do they sign? Which one do they sign? Are they going to wait until? Because usually Steelers do contracts before the start of the season. Now the season has it's a situation where I think you have to see them both play to determine whether you're going to do that. I want Fields as QB going forward, kind of like the Jordan Love scenario. Okay, I understand that. Is 1 year enough of a bridge to ensure, giving Fields the key moving forward? Let's see. Doesn't Chicago get a compensatory pick if Fields starts? Yes. Justin Fields if Justin Fields plays 51% of the snaps, it goes from a compensatory 6th in next year's draft to a 4 in next year's draft. So it's currently a 6. If he plays 51% of snaps, it becomes a 4. So you ideally want it just to be a 6. But at the same time, if he's playing 51% of snaps, what's that say about Russell Wilson this year? Either he's hurt or it was really, really, really bad. It's hard to say what scenario could go. The one thing I can say about Russell Wilson is, man, he's trying real hard to win that contract off the field. He's going to Penn's games. He's throwing out the first pitch at Pirates games. He's at Children's Hospital visiting sick kids. He's kissing babies. He's putting out a tweet on every single Steelers selection. He's trying so hard to get that next contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that doesn't involve his play. However, like I mentioned before, if you haven't watched my videos before, the Pittsburgh Steelers could go a long way on just average quarterback play. The last 2 years, we have had bad to abysmal quarterback play, especially in terms of scoring points. Abysmal. Kenny showed flashes. I wanted Kenny to work. Unfortunately, he did not. So when you get into a situation with this now, just if you take Russell Wilson and you take his stats based on last year, the Steelers could have went a long way on those stats. That was double the touchdowns that the Steelers have scored in 2 years just last year. See, Jeremiah Yoder. I think both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are looking to elevate their careers in Pittsburgh just to see what they can both do for our Steelers here in 2024. I think so too. I think Russell wants that next contract. I think Justin wants that next contract. I think they both want it to be here. And I think the addition of adding Justin Fields lights a fire under Russell Wilson as well, because when Russell Wilson came in, they're like, you're the guy, no problem. And when the Bears had options to trade Justin Fields to other teams, they had to work it out with the Steelers because that's the place he wanted to go the most. So they took their conditional 6. They received better offers from other teams, but Justin Fields didn't want to go to those teams. He wanted to go to the Steelers. So you have to wonder what was said to Justin Fields as well as Russell Wilson, and which one, is ultimately going to shake out of this thing as the long-term starter for this team. Russell Wilson's 5 at this point. So, he's looking for, my guess, a Kirk Cousins level deal. You see how well that worked out today, on undrafted him. They already drafted his predecessor after giving him $180 million. Let's put it this way. If you ever have concerns about Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, the Atlanta Falcons gave Kirk Cousins $180 million and then drafted Michael Penix to replace him, which is another $20 million. So that's about $200 million QB room. Our QB room is about $4 mil total this year. Now it's going to be a lot more next year, even no matter who is the guy. But it's kind of funny when you look at it that way. It could be worse. It could always be worse. Hey, I say, the old Mike Tomlin, the iron sharpens iron, let the best man win. I want a competition in camp. I plan to go up to training camp this year, and I want to see them both slanging it. I want to see that. I'm going to see someone come in and win that job. Whether it even if it's Russ, even if it's Fields, or whoever, I want to see somebody win. I think Fields models his game after Wilson, so this will be an interesting dynamic, how they get along. Hope Wilson is okay with passing the torch when the time comes. I can't say on good authority, but I can speculate that Wilson does not want to pass the torch when the time comes. Russell Wilson is one of those guys that wants to be the guy, and he wants to be the guy until he decides to hang it up. Whether or not that's going to be the case, time will tell. I honestly think he wants to end his career in Pittsburgh. The problem is when you have someone like Fields who has started now, and Fields is a competitor just like Russ is a competitor, and you have those two guys together, they both started last year. They're both going to want to start again. One of them's going to be very unhappy if they don't. It's hard to say which one. Right now it's Russell's job to lose. He's the older quarterback. He's the more established quarterback. It's his job to lose. Let's see. Very true. All quarterbacks want to play forever. Ask Tom Brady. He couldn't hang it up. He still can't hang it up. He's flirting with teams now, I heard he still tried to get back. Meanwhile, Fox paid him like $400 million. They haven't seen any return on that investment. But I'll be honest, I don't like Tom Brady, so we're gonna stop talking about him now. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see how it shakes out for the Steelers. It's gonna be interesting to see how these draft picks end up. What becomes of them this year. I think Wilson does want to be the guy. Yeah, I think he does want to be the guy that wants to bring the 7th Lombardi to Pittsburgh. I want anybody, whoever it is, whether it's Fields, Wilson, the next quarterback, Arch Manning, whoever's going to helm the Steelers in the future, whoever is the guy that brings that 7th to Pittsburgh, build him a statue. Mount him on Mount Rushmore. The Mount Rushmore Pittsburgh. That's not fair. There's too many names. There's too many Steelers that could be on Mount Rushmore. Yeah, I mean, I've seen 2. Jeremiah, you've seen more than I have. I've only seen 2, and I was there to enjoy the thrill of watching my team win a championship. Between the Steelers and the Penguins, I've seen a slew of championships, and I'm thrilled to say I've seen it happen in my lifetime. And then there's the Pirates, unfortunately, who I've never seen win anything. And I wanted them to win too. But no, when it comes to the Steelers, I'd love to have a Patriots run or Chiefs run where they're just winning again and again and again. They can win to the end of time. It would never get tired on me. But man, just that feeling to be on top again, to see our boys get another Super Bowl trophy. I'm here for it. Now, I can tell you this. I'm going to have a draft party video coming out, and they did a quick interview with Zach Frazier, with Peyton Wilson, with Roman Wilson, and they all had great answers on this front. They said, what are your goals for your rookie season? And Roman Wilson was the first to chirp up, win a Super Bowl. And everybody else took his lead. Peyton Wilson said the same. Zach Frazier said the same. And who can ask for more than that? The young, bright-eyed kids want to come in here, and they want to take it all. And I'm all for it. They said the right things. I like them. I like I like what they can bring to the table. And I don't think it's done. That was, I honestly think they're going to bring in 1 or 2 or 3 more pieces into this, to this group before the season starts. I really do. But let me know your thoughts. I want to get your thoughts. I do appreciate everybody for jumping in with me here. I just want to do a quick glance over at this Steelers draft. The first and second day here, the early rounds, Fontenot, Frazier, Roman Wilson, Peyton Wilson, Russell Wilson, everybody Wilson, name all the team Wilson. Let's see. One advantage I like about Wilson with Denver, Russ beat Cleveland. I'm hoping that continues in 2024. Those glory years back in the 70s were great. I enjoyed them. I absolutely would have. to be the dominating team. It's funny. San Francisco, the Patriots, now the Chiefs. They're like, well, the Steelers had their dynasty. It's like, yeah, but I wasn't around to see it. Give me mine again. I want it to come back around. Yeah, I want to see one. I want to see one. I want to see a run. I want to see a few 4, 5, 6, 7 year decade of dominance run. Do you think the changes in the division, Henry to Baltimore, affected the draft strategy any? You know what? I don't really. I honestly think that obviously Derrick Henry is incredible. Obviously him with Lamar Jackson is going to be very interesting. However, I think they just want to win at the line. I think they want to punish opponents at the line, both offensively and defensively. Now, more offensively than defensively, but you have the guys, that can win defensively. You just haven't really addressed any new pieces to that. And there was a concern about Hayward and Ogunjobi last year. I mean, obviously Hayward was injured a good bit of the year, but Ogunjobi was kind of not at his best, and you wonder if it's something moving forward, if he can kind of right the ship on that front. You want guys that will come in and dominate for you. And right now, I think they're building a very, 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 very nice offensive line that will be able to set the tone for the run game, for the passing game, be able to, give Russ or Fields more time, to give Najee or Warren more lanes. I think those are the guys that you want to run behind, you want to pass behind. And the hope is that they're a top unit for this year, and I think they could be. Let's see. You will get to see the next one, and I feel it'll be sooner than later. Just keep it. I have to believe. That's all we got. That's all we got is belief. The hope being that eventually they could be, they could get it back to the thing. Every year there's a hope, and then here comes Patrick Mahomes to murder that dream. Patrick, and I was hoping that maybe Travis Kelce and Andy Reid will retire, because I do kind of want to see Mahomes without them, just to see if he has, because I think he's really good, but does he have the skill to win without those two? It'll be interesting to see when that eventually shakes out. But they're a team that's really good, but they're never looked. Even the Patriots were like this, where they never looked unbeatable. They just consistently win. They always look like that you can really get them, like you can beat them, but it just seems that when the final whistle rings, that the Chiefs come out on top, and it's like, man, those are really good teams when they can do that. But however, the Steelers did improve. They improved offensively and they improved defensively, and the hope is that they can put it all together, and they have the benefit, let's hope, that the Bill Burr looking punter can actually pin people back and not 20-yard punts like Presley Harvin was doing, and killing field position like Presley Harvin was doing, that you have a capable punter that can hit some bombs. And that is so important. Obviously, Boswell's bringing the goods, so I'm not worried about that special teams. That punting situation, punters are people too, and that punter, if he can change the field position game, Steelers will win more games as a result of that, versus a 20-yard punt where the offense is already on the 40 going in usually, and they couldn't stop them. They couldn't do anything about it. So I love the additions that they added this year. I think they gave that punter pretty big money, like top punter money, but the hope is you get top punter production. They tried to pull it from the draft. It wasn't working. So now you get a top punter, and the hope is that dude's got the goods to deliver. Looking forward to training camp. Don't forget, we got Cordell Patterson with the new return rule. It's funny how sneaky the Steelers did that. They announced the new return rule and then immediately signed. It was like 20 minutes later. It's like, by the way, we sent Cordell Patterson. Hey, that new return rule is going to open up the return game. Cool. Let's hire the best returner available, even though he's significantly older than usually how the Steelers add free agents. He's, they're on it. I am curious to see, obviously there's they're making calls right now. There's undrafted guys, The Steelers, and I don't know how this, I'll be honest, I don't focus too much on the rest of the league on this front, but I do love football. The Steelers seem to always have a capable guy or two guys or three guys that came from the undrafted or USFL or XFL or what is it now, the UFL. These guys that come in and produce off the street, and now they're going to sign. They probably already signed them. I didn't see an update yet, but they, the undrafted free agent guys they bring in, there's usually almost always one, maybe two, maybe three that are going to make this team and deliver. But yeah, Khan's cooking. Absolutely, Khan's cooking. You got to love the aggressive approach. Now, we were at the draft party today, and Kevin Colbert was there on the Cam Hayward podcast, and you appreciate everything Kevin Colbert did. I mean, he laid the framework for the team, drafted the monsters, some of the absolute monsters, draft-wise. But Kevin Colbert was not, how you say, an aggressive guy. As far as like Omar Khan is an aggressive guy, like he's just ready, bam, to make the move. Like he does not mess around. That's not necessarily a bad, good or bad thing, but you appreciate Khan's approach when dealing with Kevin Colbert for so many years, and now Khan's, just jumping in, with both feet, trying to make this team better. I mentioned that they still have a lot of cap space too. They tried to make a deal for Debo. They tried to make a deal for Courtland Sutton. Those teams didn't want to play ball. They're going to sign someone. James Harrison. James Harrison's an undrafted. He's one of those guys that they brought in. I think Mike Hilton's one of those guys that they brought in. Guys that came in and, they're unheralded. Willie Parker was one of those guys, if I remember correctly. Guys, unheralded guys that they brought in, and they delivered the goods. I mean, just, they're amazing careers. Like Harrison should be a Hall of Famer. I mean, he really should. Steelers bias, they tell you. Look, if you haven't been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I have several times. You can watch those videos. I thought they were all separated. I thought there was different rooms for each team, and I was like, oh, that's why I don't like the Steelers having. There's too many heads. There's too many heads in the Steelers room. They're actually not the top team as far as Pro Football Hall of Famers. That's the Bears. The Bears have now two more. They added Mongo McMichael and Devin Hester in this recent class, and so they have many more heads than we have. Yet, why is there a Steelers bias? Yet, you could put in L.C. Greenwood into the Hall. You could put James Harrison, and you better put Hines Ward at some point. Those names need to be added. We know Ben's getting in. That's at least one we know, but there's about three more that should. Maybe even Pouncey if you're talking about it. If you're being real honest here, I don't want to be the homer vote, but I mean, it's, there's guys that should be in there. But yeah, there's top guys, that have come from just this undrafted group, or just somebody that they added. So who knows who they added this time around? There could be certainly some piece that will come in and, end up being the next guy. And you have to hope for that. But I have a small hope. I'm gonna do a slight hope here. Dear football God, we humbly we come before you humbled, and I want a playoff win. I would love the Super Bowl, of course. Who wouldn't want the Super Bowl? But God, it's been a long time since we've had a playoff win. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a playoff win? It would be nice if this team could deliver the goods, not just get to the playoffs, but actually advance in the playoffs to have a chance at the dance. If they get to dance, even better. But get me at least a playoff win, for God's sakes. It's been too long. I need it. I gotta have it. But I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts on the draft. I'd love to hear everybody's input on these draft picks. I want to know, was there guys that, you wanted the Steelers to take? I certainly had some. If you watch my mock drafts, there were certainly guys that I thought, I wanted Brendan Rice in the later rounds. He didn't go till the 7th. I wanted Jeremiah Trotter. I had no idea we were going to get somebody like a Peyton Wilson. I didn't think we had a chance of getting somebody like a Peyton Wilson. So I thought Trotter would be a good play in the later rounds. I I wanted Jackson Powers Johnson, who turns out he's not even going to play center for the Raiders. He's going to be a guard. But thrilled with Zach Frazier. They filled their quota. They filled their list. There's so many guys they could have potentially been in, potentially drafted in this draft class that I'm going to keep an eye on, just in the hopes that they do not have a great career and that the guys the Steelers drafted do have a great career. That's what I'm going for. Let's see. Steelers bias. That's nonsense. I've also been to Canton, Ohio, and the Hall of Fame it is a fantastic place. February 19th. I was actually, I was there around that time too, to be honest with you. I went to the Legacy Forged in Black and Gold, the Pittsburgh Steelers special exhibit that was there. Oh, I think I went President's Day, which is the 20th or the 10th or 20th? Either way, I was around there the same time. And yeah, I love that place. Obviously very close given being in the Pittsburgh area. But yeah, I mean, it's just an awesome place. And yeah, I think the Steelers bias is just nonsense myself. But, with the Legacy Forged of Black and Gold, they did separate all the Steelers heads. A lot of heads. A lot of Pittsburgh Steelers influence in that draft. See Chris Moe squad, Barton. Yeah, Graham Barton. That's another one. We haven't touched on him. Graham Barton certainly was a guy that could potentially have been the center for this team. I felt pretty good about Barton if they would have taken him as well. I'm going to watch his career. I'm going to hope that he does not do as well. I'm hoping Frazier is one of those next great Steelers centers, and he's ultimately the best pick out of all those other guys. I got to hope so. Let's see. Very happy with Fontenot. That's exactly right. So Fontenot, and I think the medical did drag him down a little bit. And that's why I did not put him on my boards for my mock drafts, because I mention it almost every time in those mock drafts. Every time I see his name pop up, I'm like, they mentioned knee, they mentioned long-term. I was concerned, but I'm not the Steelers, and I didn't have a doctor do a once-over on him. I'm a guy sitting in my office in Pittsburgh, just like, he has a medical. I'm not bothering with him. Meanwhile, the Steelers are doing checks, and they're like, he's good, and they're willing to stake their reputation on it, so I'm just fine with it. Same with Peyton Wilson, for that matter. Ian Rappaport came out last night. I was pounding the table. I was like, why is Wilson still falling? Then Ian Rappaport comes out on this report. It's like, he has a bad shoulder. It was a bad surgery. He also doesn't have an ACL. And I was like, ooh, maybe I don't want him. So then kind of the worm turned. And then they, of course, draft him like a pick later. And then you watch his highlights and you watch his tape, and you're like, he leaps off the page. He is, first round talent level good. And you're like, man, he really just looks like and you're like, that dude's playing that without an ACL. And I mentioned this in the other video, but I'm going to mention here as well. You can't tear an ACL if you don't have one. That's thinking man's logic right there. But no, shocked that Hines Ward and Greg Lloyd also don't have an ACL and had productive careers. So once I heard that, I was like, oh, I'm not worried about that at all. I didn't realize this dude was some statistical anomaly or something. Apparently there's a long streak of people that don't have ACLs, nice careers. So I feel good about that. And I think if he can be a monster, because he hasn't missed games. He has all this injury. They're saying his shoulder's jacked up. He has no ACL. He had 2 ACLs, all this stuff like that. 2 torn ACLs. And yet he hasn't missed game the last 2 seasons. So you got to hope he comes in and delivers. I wouldn't think he will. I think a lot of guys fell because of the medical. I trust the docs and time will tell. Great moves if they bounce back. Lots of time to heal before the season. Exactly right. Plus, this is a business. This is Football Inc. They're not just going like, well, we heard the medicals and we're like, no, we're going to take a chance on him anyway. No, I think they're hearing the medicals. They're going over the doctors ourselves. Their doctors saying, hey, he's good. Or you can draft him because this reason or that reason. And they're like, well, we're going to draft him then. But especially with Peyton Wilson, 22 teams apparently share these medical reports. And I don't know, they didn't really specify whether the Steelers were one of those or not. But apparently all 22 of those teams were like, nope, not for us. And that's why he started falling down the board. And whether the Steelers are one of those 22 teams or not, they decided once you make that pick, you're deciding that you're fine with it. That happened with Darnell Washington last year. Darnell Washington fell off a cliff because they said he was a one contract guy because of injuries. And the Steelers were like, we're taking Darnell Washington anyway. What are you going to do about it? They clearly either they're having faith that these guys can come through and, deliver still, or their medicals are checking out just fine for them, or at least, to the point where they're like, maybe with rehab, maybe with this, maybe with that, they can potentially play. So I really want to. Let's see. Peyton Wilson's a lineman with speed like a receiver. Yeah, 4.4. Peyton Wilson has 4.4 speed. There is a highlight which I want you to find. Some of you might have seen it, but they're playing Notre Dame, and a Notre Dame receiver catches a pass, and it's behind Peyton Wilson, and he turns around and he flags this dude down like a lion chasing a gazelle, apparently at the NFL speed of 23.8 miles per hour, like a monster. And he has no ACL, and he flags him down about 30 yards down the field. And you're like, oh my God, this is a fiend. Like, this dude stays healthy. He's an absolute monster. And you hope he stays healthy. But also keep in mind that Patrick Queen was added to that position. That, you still have a Landon Roberts, you still have Cole Holcomb. I believe you still have Mark Robinson. I think you still have him as well. So you have a bunch of guys. You have a bunch of guys now at the middle linebacker position. I think you can call Quan and get him off the street. Granted, he didn't sign with someone. I think you could have called Miles Jack and get him off the street. Granted, he didn't sign with someone. I think there's talent at this position that you could certainly add and eventually have quality play from it. But obviously, I think, I don't, whether Wilson starts day one is here nor there, but Patrick Queen and at least Landon Roberts to start out this year. Landon Roberts turned out pretty good, actually. So I wouldn't mind that duo to start out the year. Obviously, I like Wilson's coverage options better than either of those two are concerned, but time will tell as whether or not he can start day one. I think he'll take some seasoning, to be honest with you, although, according to some of these analysts, both Wilsons are game ready, like battle tested, like should start day one. And I'm like, well, we'll see. I mean, I'd love if they all did, but we don't yet know what else they're going to add before training camp as well. They could add players in certain positions that could, make sure that some of these guys don't start. But no, I've been talking to you guys, and thanks. Oh, I love when everybody chimes in with the comments. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. But I got a Steelers draft party video to edit and dinner to be made, late dinner to be made. But just want to get on to talk post draft. And just thrilled with the Steelers additions this year. And as with every year, it's Steelers Christmas. I love the draft. It's my favorite time of year. I love when they add new names. It's always exciting, to unwrap that present of the hope of what potentially this Steelers offense could be and what the Steelers could be in 2024. Great stuff as always. Looking forward to a training camp video. I'm hoping to do one. I'm definitely going to be coming out to training camp this year to analyze what's going on with the Steelers. Thanks, Jeremiah, for coming in. Great show tonight. Already looking forward to the next show. Thank you so much. I don't get live a ton, but I do have. There's been a boatload of Steelers content as of late. You might be seeing some other stuff from me in the next few weeks that is anti-Steelers, because I have a lot of different fandoms out there, because I do a variety of different strange videos. But I do appreciate watching the Steelers content. And thanks everybody who chimed in with comments, with likes, or watching just the video. It means so much to me, and thank you so much. But guys, the 2024 Steelers draft is in the books, and I feel good about it. Let me know if you didn't catch this live stream, your thoughts in the comments down below, whether you feel good about it. Make sure, as always, to like, share, subscribe, every like, every comment, every engagement is certainly the Steelers fandom is the only fandom. I know, but I try to run a variety channel that I have a lot of different interests. I do love the Steelers first and foremost, but I do have a lot of different interests out there that I like to showcase on the channel as well. But I do appreciate that, and yeah, tons of Steelers content as of late. But definitely subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, thanks so much for watching. And until the next live stream or the next video, I will see you soon. And thanks so much for jumping in. 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers post-draft recap. Thanks for all the comments. I greatly appreciate it. Bye, everyone.